For 25 years. Long time.
You have a lot of students. I'll tell you, I appreciate that. Today he was trying to put the lights on. And he wants to just, so let's send it. I said, outside. And put the tree together, it's just 3 parts. Okay, I'll just go with it. You don't mind, but you put it from the top down. So we have a home, but you really do.
No.
Everybody, when you guys are. So it's like the box house is really.
I'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's meeting. Ask you to please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For everyone, since I know Pastor was not able to be here this evening for prayer, but he indicated he may have someone here. Is anyone here from Pastor Tony's church? Apparently not. Okay. Before we start, looks like we've got a number of students from Mr. Scalapan's class. Is that right? I'll raise your hands so you can see how many. Congratulations, you're going to be here for probably the longest meeting we've had this year. You can all stay awake. You're going to
Maybe come sit if you want stuff where. There's 3 seats up here. And there's 2 chairs over there too. No. There's 1 chair, there's 2 chairs up here.
There's 1 there and there.
I make a motion to approve of minutes for the regular town board meeting on Thursday, November 14, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? Clerk call roll, please.
Councilmember Grant. Aye. Councilmember Shannon.
Aye.
Supervisor Winston.
Right. Town clerk's report.
Total local shares submitted $5,223.50. Total non-local revenues $425.90. Total state, county, and local revenues $5,649.40.
Okay, supervisors report revenues, general fund, $118,917.87. Highway fund, $30,390.87. Sewer district number 1, $5.92. Sewer district number 2, $237.94. Sewer district number 3, $11.22. Total revenues, $149,563.82. Disbursements, general fund, $167,659.22. Highway fund, $27,330.59. Lighting district number 1, $541.12. Lighting district number 2, $1,082.52. Lighting district number 3, $499.58. Sewer district number 1, $17,922.85. Sewer district number 2, $24,039.67. Sewer district number 3, $5,635.36. Total disbursements, $244,710.91. Payment of claims.
General Fund A, $166,695.79. General OBB, $3,612.64. Highway Fund BA, $8,702.78. Highway ABBB, $166,161.30. Lighting District Number 1, $735.78. Lighting District Number 2, $1,233.56. Lighting District Number 3, $558.62. Planning Board, $3,230.01. Sewer District Number 1, $16,604.28. Sewer District Number 2, $9,698.03. Sewer District Number 3, $1,777.77. Trust and Agency, $1,511.89. Total transfers to AP, $380,522.02.
Second.
Any discussion? Clerk call roll, please.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Santilli.
Aye.
Supervisor Wilt.
Aye. Okay, committee reports, highway, we don't have Bill here today. I know that he has gotten through the past few storms that we've had pretty well. Had a couple of minor breakdowns, nothing that couldn't be taken care of. And at this juncture with things quiet, just getting equipment ready for when the weather turns again. Public safety, Diane, do you have anything? Neither do I. Parks Committee, as we stated at the last meeting, we're waiting for the weather to cooperate. Hopefully, we're able to get the ice skating rink established and set up in time for the next time that looks like warm weather next week. We have an opportunity to get that set up next week. Beyond that, it looks like it's going to get cold, so we're at the mercy of the weather as far as setting up that skating rink is concerned. Sewer.
Yeah, Andrew got a hold of me. They had a bunch of calls over Thanksgiving weekend. They went to the grinder pumps. And, they had a problem with the H7 pump station, and that's been repaired.
You know, I know that all the rain yesterday had them moving all day as well. With the increased flow rates. Mike, you have anything that I didn't? Okay. Okay, let's move on to the business meeting.
Motion to appoint members to the Board of Ethics. Whereas the Board of Ethics has requested that the town board appoint additional members to the board, and whereas local law 1/2010, section 8A, establishing the DOE has certain restraints for board members with respect to political affiliation. And whereas the Board of Ethics has recommended that the town board appoint Deborah Peters and Greg Harkenrider to the BOE, if they are willing. And whereas Nicholas Cassano, a town board member, has been recommended to be placed on the BOE, and he is willing. And now therefore be it resolved, the town board of Deborah Peters, Greg Harkenrider, and Nicholas Cassano to the BOE commencing immediately.
Second.
Discussion on this, we had two of the members of the ethics board that had passed away within the past year, leaving a couple of vacancies. And the one seat that had been occupied by a board member had been open as well, so this will fill up those seats. Clerk call roll, please.
Councilmember Graham.
Aye.
Councilmember Santilli.
Aye.
Supervisor Wilt.
Aye.
The motion to enter into an agreement with Marshall and Sterling Employee Benefits Inc. Whereas the town of Duane Curtis entered into a contract with Marshall and Sterling Employee Benefits Inc. and SEB for broker agent consulting services. And whereas the parties now desire to enter into a business associate agreement to address the handling of protected health information pursuant to the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act and its implementation regulations, 45 CFR parts 160 to 164, HIPAA. Now therefore be it resolved, town supervisor is authorized to execute the attached agreement with the MSCB regarding the handling of protected health information pursuant thereby.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Clerk call the roll, please.
Councilmember Santilli?
Aye.
Councilmember Grant?
Aye.
Supervisor Winston?
Aye. Motion to introduce local law amending the zoning ordinance with respect to the definition and regulation of poultry husbandry. Whereas the town of Duanesburg is concerned that the term poultry husbandry is undefined but referenced within the town zoning ordinance's definition of agriculture, and that no density is established from the town zoning ordinance for poultry husbandry. And whereas failing to specify in the town zoning ordinance an appropriate density of poultry is likely to pose a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare of residents of the town and their property, as maintaining poultry under too dense conditions can lead to disease, to inappropriate waste management, excessive noise and odors, and unsafe living conditions for the poultry. Whereas the attached local law amending the town zoning ordinance has been drafted to address these issues, and the town board is the only involved agency for this action, which consists of adopting a local law to amend the town zoning ordinance. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby introduces the attached local law 4 of 2024, that should be correct, Teresa?
No,
It'll actually be
No,
2025.
Okay,
Yeah. So
Local
it
law-
should be, it'll probably be local law 1, sorry,
Okay.
2025.
so that's local law 1 of 2025, defining and regulating poultry husbandry in the town of Duanesburg. Be it further resolved that a public hearing shall be held on the adoption of the local law at the next regular meeting of the town board on January 9th, 2025 at the town of Duanesburg town offices at 5853 Western Turnpike, Duanesburg, New York at 7 p.m. And that all public comments submitted in writing by that date and time or made during the public hearing shall be considered by the town board. Be it further resolved, the proposed local law shall be provided to the Schenectady County Planning Department for a recommendation pursuant to the New York State General Municipal Law, to the Town Planning Board and Zoning Board of Appeals for comment, and that the notice of public hearing shall be posted on the town website, on the town notice board, and in the Daily Gazette as required by law.
Bill, just one thing I wanted to add, if we could, just be it further resolved that the town board will act as seeker lead agency
Okay,
for the
yes.
review of this action.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Clerk call the roll, please.
Supervisor Winston?
Aye.
Councilmember Santilli?
Aye.
Councilmember Grant?
Aye. Motion to introduce legal laws amending the zoning ordinance regarding solar law, wind law, and battery energy storage systems in the town. Whereas the town of Duanesburg is concerned with the installation and operation of battery energy storage systems as either standalone systems or systems installed in conjunction with wind energy systems or solar energy systems pose a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare of residents of the town and their property. Whereas the town board would like to ensure that the town's laws, including the zoning ordinance and the solar and wind energy laws with respect to installation and operation of BESS, all consistently prohibit the installation and operation of BESS with the exception of any existing approved project, i.e. Oak Hill 1 and 2. Whereas the town board finds that the installation and operation of BESS will impose hardship on its volunteer firefighters, and that currently the state of New York has not implemented any of the recommendations of its task force on BESS to ensure that the residents of the town are protected from the use of this type of equipment BESS. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby introduces the attached 3 proposed local laws 1, 2, and 3 of the town of Duanesburg regarding the prohibition of BESS. Be it further resolved that a public hearing will be held on the adoption of the local laws at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the town board on January 9th, 2025 the town of Jonesburg Town Offices at 5853 Western Turnpike, Jonesburg, New York at 7 p.m. And that all public comments submitted in writing by 4 p.m. January 9th, 2025 are made during the public hearing shall be considered by the town board. Be it further resolved that the proposed local laws shall be provided to the Schenectady County Planning Department for recommendation pursuant to the New York State General Municipal Law to the Town Planning Board and Zoning Boards of Appeal for comment, and that the notice of public hearing shall be posted on the town website, on the town notice board, and in the Daily Gazette as required by law.
Second.
Just one change, it would become local laws 2, 3, and 5. That's what we would expect of 2025.
2, 3, and 4.
2, 3, and 4, did I say that? Sorry. And then we just need to add that you're gonna act as seeker lead agency as well to this one. Okay,
Very good. Okay, and discussion on this BESS, which is a battery energy storage system. We are very much aware that there have been multiple installations throughout the state where there have been fires. And it's a technology that is in its infancy, and we don't want to be in a situation here where we're jeopardizing health or safety as a result of that. So looking around at some other towns, they've been able to impose a prohibition on this. We asked the town attorney to look into this and find out who would be able to do so. The answer to that was yes. So that's where we are at this time. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Grant.
Aye.
Councilmember Santilli.
Aye.
Supervisor Winslow.
Aye.
Motion to approve the 2025 amended budget. Whereas the town of Waynesburg Town Board approved the final budget for the 2025 fiscal year at the town board's regularly scheduled November 14, 2024 town board meeting after duly holding a public hearing on the preliminary budget. Whereas the final budget had a transpositional error while the preliminary budget had no such error. And whereas the error was that final budget for fiscal year 2025 did not show the revenues for the town of Waynesburg sewer districts 2 and 3, the final columns in the body of the budget, although the summary page of the final budget was correctly showed the final numbers. Whereas the town board has reviewed the correction of this error, which will be filed as amended final budget of the town of Waynesburg for fiscal year 2025 with the town clerk, which is attached to this resolution. Now therefore, be it resolved, the town board approves and authorizes the attached amended final budget for fiscal year 2025 directs that it be filed and posted as required by law.
The discussion on this, essentially a typographical error that was picked up in a review of the form because of the protocol of the state comptroller's office. We have to go through this and make a resolution to make a record of this. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Santilli.
Aye.
Councilmember Grant.
Aye.
Supervisor Winslow.
Aye.
Motion to approve the contracts for 2025. Whereas the town wishes to enter into agreements with Waynesburg Volunteer Ambulance Corps, DVAC, Inc. for general ambulance services, the village of Delanson for the town of Waynesburg to provide road maintenance and building inspection services. The town of Princetown for the town of Waynesburg to provide snow plowing services. The village of Esperance for the fire protection services. Rival Volunteer Fire Company for fire protection services. The Burtonsville Volunteer Fire Company for fire protection services, and the village of Delanson for fire protection services. And whereas the town of Waynesburg Town Highway Superintendent has signed off on the intermunicipal agreements with the village of Delanson and the town of Princetown with respect to the roadway maintenance and snow plowing services. And whereas the town board has carefully reviewed the agreements, and now therefore be it resolved that the town board approves and authorizes the town supervisor to execute the agreements attached.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to add that there's 2 remaining contracts for next year that you don't have yet. One is Omnis and one is Bowman. So just so we don't lose track.
And we will address those at the,
End of year. That's the
Okay.
plan.
all right. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Grant.
Aye.
Councilmember Santilli.
Aye.
Supervisor Winslow.
Motion to change the end of year meeting to December 26, 2024 at 9 a.m.
Second.
Due to some scheduling conflicts, we are changing dates from some of our earlier scheduled, initially scheduled times. Clerk call roll, please.
Supervisor Wenzel.
Aye.
Councilmember Santilli.
Aye.
Councilmember Grant.
Aye.
Motion to change the 2025 organizational meeting to January 6, 2025 at 9 a.m.
Aye.
Clerk call roll, please.
Councilmember Santilli.
Aye.
Councilmember Grant.
Aye.
Supervisor Wenzel.
Aye. Okay, that concludes the business meeting. We can move on to privilege of the floor unless anybody has anything else we need to bring up. We'll now open up the floor to comment. I ask if you're going to comment, please state your name and your address for the record.
My name is Cody Banny. I live in the town of Lansing as well, with, Steve and Steve Farag, Seychelles. I just want to know, when did you guys start plowing our development area?
When?
Yeah, when was that started a new thing? Because for the past couple of years, our development wasn't plowed and maintained. And I myself and a couple others in that development were in some crashes or slid off the road. And I just want to know when that was a new thing.
Well, that's town maintained road, and I believe that the timing, from what I've heard, sometimes it was not plowed on a timely basis.
For the past, yeah.
And that's the responsibility of the highway superintendent. And whether he's not here to speak to that, whether there were times when there were breakdowns and other problems and what have you. But I am glad to hear some other residents reported as well, but it was done more timely.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So, well, thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else like to speak this evening?
Josh Barnes, Dwaynesburg Road. Two things here. For the poultry farm or commercial farming in general, why aren't we trying to capture a special use permit on all commercial farming? I know we're kind of specified in poultry at this point, but why not give the town a little bit more instead of, from what I'm reading here, as long as they follow the guidelines as to the brief summary here, it's still pretty much a go. If we do something as far as a special use permit, there's more to look into, more to research rather than they're abiding by the rules and that's it. I did speak with you and I sent a few emails across as well, kind of explaining where I was coming from as far as using a special use permit. Just want to touch base on that.
I have to defer to, as far as a special use permit, that becomes, as I mentioned to you, that becomes a legality.
Sure.
And so I'm going to defer to the town attorney because I know we had spoken about that. What do we do to get something like that in front of the planning board? Is there a mechanism to do that?
So in New York State and in the town, there's a right to farm law, okay? So right now, as we sit here tonight, there are about 4 or 5 farms in town. And those farms all have operated all these years and with very little to no complaints from anyone. So commercial farming is if you make more than $10,000 a year as an operator. So there's a very low threshold for what Ag and Markets considers commercial farming. So if the town wanted to regulate all farming, it could certainly do so by amending the zoning ordinance. And it could amend the zoning ordinance so that agriculture is no longer a use permitted as of right, but that it will require, because the way our zoning code is set up, if you require a special use permit, you also need a site plan approval. So once you hit that point, there are certain limitations in the state ag and markets law as to what a municipality can do to regulate farming. And that's 305-A of the ag and markets law. That law is put in place to ensure that municipalities treat farms fairly. Okay, that's what it's there for. It doesn't mean you can't require them all to come in and get a special use permit and site plan approval. It just means that what you can require them to do is limited, and frankly, it discourages you from regulating farm buildings, farm animals, the same way you would regulate, say, a gas station or a grocery store. It's in ag districts, okay, because the county has ag districts. And
Where?
Schenectady County has quite a few ag districts. That's where that applies.
I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt the other use, so, I mean, there's special use permits for tennis courts and lights and stuff like that. I just don't see on a commercial side, I get there's a clear difference between commercial farming and sustenance farming, you know.
There's no difference between sustenance.
In our
farming.
town, you're correct, and that's what I would like to change.
No, I mean, the definition of farming. The farmers that are dairy farmers and sell milk are not sustenance farmers. They are commercial farmers.
Correct.
Okay, that's the only point I'm making. I'm not aware of anybody in zoning codes distinguishing between farmers who are successful and farmers who are not. So we would have to be careful how we word that.
But it's doable, correct?
Anything is doable.
Okay, I just got one more and then I'll
Okay.
jump in here. Just to touch back on the battery energy storage systems here, Oak Hill. Are they still currently using, is their storage system active right now, or has that been removed?
No, their storage, I don't know if their storage system has been installed or not. Chris Parslow would know that. If you call him, he would know that answer. This law doesn't cover them.
Right, because that got pushed in and we were okay with it, but as we clearly see now, and a few people talked about before, that this was going to be an issue, and I think the town sees it now, and this is something we should address. So I'm glad it's going in now.
Thanks.
Name is Gary Friedman. I live at 548 State Highway 30. The property abuts the proposed chicken farm. Ma'am, are you citing the Williamsburg right to farm law as having anything to do with your decision that it's not required?
The decision makers are the gentlemen up here. I'm just the lawyer advising the board. So when,
But you mentioned the right to farm.
yes, because it is relevant to how we regulate farms in the town of Dwaynesburg.
And so, to your knowledge, since 1991, when it was enacted in Williamsburg, has it been amended?
The right to farm law?
Yes.
Not that I'm aware of.
So it's section 5 of the right to farm law, the town of Williamsburg clearly states that no nuisance lawsuits can be brought as long as the farm is in operation for at least 1 year. Are you aware of that?
I'm aware of that, and we put notes on all the subdivisions that we approve to let people know that if they move in next to a farm, that provision pertains.
And that's very good. I'm glad you do that. But isn't it true that the right to farm law would not apply to a farm that has not been here for 1 year?
That provision would not apply.
That provision is the main part of the law, section 5.
I hear you. Yes.
You hear me, but what is your answer as an attorney for the town? Does section 5 apply here or does it not?
It would not apply here. You lived there first. The farm would be coming to you.
So it would not apply. The
It
right to farm.
That section of the right to farm law would not apply.
Thank you.
One thing I want to throw out here, I have numbers in my head constantly, and I know not everybody else does. The original proposal was not made clear on behalf of the, I'm gonna call potential applicant, because there is no application that's in at this time. A proposal of a building that would have been about 4,000 square feet. This law that we put in place, 1.5 square feet per each fowl, means a 4,000 square foot building would have to be made 15 times larger. It would have to be a 60,000 square foot building. Just to throw the number out there. So that's what we're talking about. Can that 60,000 square foot building meet setbacks where it's going to be? There's no application. We don't know any of that. But we're talking about a building that would be 15 times the size, roughly, of what had originally been proposed. And those numbers were looked at. Those aren't numbers that we arbitrarily selected. Those numbers were based upon figures that were used. I know Penn State University had done studies. There were some other very reputable ag institutions, and that's the criteria that they are using. So we looked at that as a defensible real number. And so that's where that came from. And it results, as I said, in a much, much larger, much more elaborate structure in order to be able to address this. Whether or not an applicant finds that financially feasible, that's their business decision, whether or not they think that'll make sense.
However, with respect to its impact on the neighbor, if that applicant decided to build a 60,000 square foot poultry farm, you would allow, based on the new law,
We
the
need,
amendment.
I have to defer to the attorney to find out. What we're here to do is to protect the town from liability. And as I mentioned the last time, we're very much cognizant of the concerns of the residents, and we will do everything we can for the residents within the scope of the law. And if that means we have to ask for ways to try to find ways to do things, we'll always do that. But at the bottom line is, in the end, we have to do things within the law. So
Then can I
have to
ask the
defer-
attorney, in that case, and I can respect the fact that you don't want to have a lawsuit. In that case, does the town have any option to deny a building permit for such a project on the basis of detrimental public health, safety, or what it does to property value surrounding it, which is clearly noted in several studies? If the town is made aware that there is a more than likely idea of public health problems in the small surrounding areas within 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers, if the town believes that the neighbors are in jeopardy because of a 40,000 chicken farm, does the town have the ability to protect those neighbors and deny the building permit?
So the way this is drafted, if they meet the density requirements that we've set forth, which would result in far fewer animals, then they would not need a special use permit for the poultry farm.
And that's fine. You're assuming though that this person has no interest in doing a 60,000 square foot building. Assuming that.
And remember too, there are setbacks that are currently provided for in the town law where you have animals enclosed in a building.
Understood. We're familiar with those setbacks. And there are 18 acres. That's 40,000 square feet times 18. So I don't think setbacks would be a problem for this person on 18 acres.
Well, it depends on how much a 60,000 square foot building would occupy.
40,000 square feet per acre times 18. 200-foot setbacks. I don't see that as a problem. And then the question would be, how does the town plan on enforcing it? How is it policed? Who gets to go into this place every so often and count chickens before they hatch?
Right.
Who gets to do that?
The person who enforces the town zoning ordinance is the town code enforcement officer, Chris Parsons.
And Chris would go into that chicken farm.
If he had reason to believe that there were more chickens in there that are allowed.
How would he know that?
How does he know anything? People talk.
Okay. At a certain point, there also has to be protections for property owners. We cannot just arbitrarily go onto your property, start mapping it out because we think maybe your equalization rate isn't correct. Property owners have certain rights. So I want you to keep in mind that everybody has those equal rights.
Well, there are a large number of residents sitting here who have rights also.
Correct.
and they have a right to the peaceful, quiet use of their property. They have a right to a healthy environment in their neighborhoods. I'm just asking the town of Duanesburg to consider our rights.
Just to be clear on the procedure. Anytime the town amends its zoning ordinance, which is what it would be doing here, it does a number of things. It puts together the draft or text of a local law that has to be introduced. Then it's sent to county planning for county planning's input, to the town planning board and to the zoning board of appeals for their input. And then there's a public hearing as well, at which everybody has an opportunity to comment on the law and what changes should be made to it. So the board is very open to your comments on the local law and will consider each and every one of them.
And I think I speak for my neighbors in saying we appreciate the I used to live in Glen, the town of Duanesburg going through that process so that we would have our voices heard on January 9th, I think it is.
Yes, that's right.
Speaking for myself, thank you for doing this.
And please feel free to send in your comments in writing whenever you get to it. You don't have to wait until the 9th.
Teresa, I think you hit the nail on the head there when you commented on this gentleman, that everything in here, as long as they abide by everything without a special use permit, this is what we follow. With a special use permit, we're able to clarify things and take a look at surroundings and everything else other than what's just black and white here. I think that's what I was after, and your follow-up answer to him is exactly what I was looking for. So I would ask you guys to definitely look into that, please. If there is a way to put a special use permit in there, I think to clarify in the town between commercial farming and farming, there's definitions of it. So there's two different things. It's not the same thing. And it's very clear to me that that's the way to prevent things like this. It's not discouraging farming. That's what this town is. It's a farm town, but there's a clear difference between what's proposed here and a hay farm, a dairy farm. There's a huge difference there. Everybody can see that. And if you haven't, take a trip over to somewhere who has a poultry farm or a pig farm out west, they're huge. I hunt by them. It's not pleasant. And I don't think anybody here who's sitting here who lives next to this proposed place is going to want to see that. And it's not just this one spot here. If we don't do something like this with a special use, it could be, on McGuire School Road. It could be Alexander Road. It's not just, 4 or 5 houses that are affected by this here. It's 10 years down the way. It's next week. We don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anyone else like to speak?
If they, I'm Greg Jennings, I live at Duanesburg Road, right down the road from him. If they do end up putting the building up, is there any laws or rules for manure management? Because they're gonna be making crap ton of manure.
There are laws that DEC enforces with respect to concentrated animal feeding operations called CAFOs.
Okay.
So they're depending on the size, they're required to get what's known as a discharge elimination system permit from DEC.
Right.
And they have no public water or sewer at that location.
Right.
So that's also a factor in terms of availability of water for animals.
So is there any way you would be able to say they did go forward with this building, be able to put any kind of scrubbers on their ventilation or anything like that? Or are they just gonna be blowing raw and
It's not even gonna make it.
dust? What's that?
It's not gonna make it that far.
Oh, I'm just saying, if it gets that far.
In New York State, again, DEC regulates the air emissions.
Okay.
It's part 201 of the 6th NYCRR, part 201. And in that, they regulate nuisance odors as well as particulates. So in the past, they have brought cases against farms that have violated the standards.
Okay.
My name is Hollywood and I own property that borders it too. I just have a question in regards to some of the studies that I've researched so far. Is there gonna be like a soil test regulation included in that as well? Because a lot of the commercial chicken farms, a lot of those chickens are actually treated with antibiotics that have gone into the soil surrounding the properties and gotten into the wells and stuff that have affected children and, you know, elderly and stuff like that. So I want to know if it does go through, is that something that is going to be in some of these regulations where they're going to have to be soil testing that area?
It would be great if you could send us the research that you've done. on
I
that.
definitely will.
That would be
Definitely
much
will.
appreciated.
Yeah.
If you'd like, ma'am, if you'd like to come up after the meeting, give me your, I'll give you my email address.
Okay. I actually think Harry gave it to me, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Pretty good. Would anyone else like to speak?
Actually, I also live on 394 State Highway 30, which will border this farm. We have a shallow well there, and our neighbors also do with this drought this season. We've had several water deliveries. I'm wondering if there's anything in place. How is this farm going to get enough water? Will it affect our water table as well?
That's an important consideration because if you take a look at poultry, they consume 1 to 2 pints each of water per day. Again, work the numbers out on that.
Okay.
And they would need to be able to have a well that would produce
And like I said,
10 to
myself and
15 gallons a minute. And I know from years ago when I was on
Not happening.
we've had 5 deliveries.
So, we wouldn't be able to regulate that, but that's something that any prudent business person would have to make a determination on whether or not they have adequate water to sustain their operation.
Yeah. And how would it affect the residential area around it? Yeah.
Is there any groundwater? I know with the Cape, does Cape Hope get involved with groundwater?
No, so the Department of Environmental Conservation regulates the withdrawal of water from wells pursuant to their water withdrawal regulations. And I'm not familiar enough with them to say that whether the amount of water that would be withdrawn associated with this type of operation would be something that they would cover or not. But it is on the DEC website. And I'd encourage you to look there. It's just the water withdrawal regs. For instance, they regulate the withdrawal of water for irrigation of apple fields and things like that. So I think it might tie into the quantity of water withdrawn.
Okay. Can I just get your name for the record? Jessica Wilson.
Yes, ma'am.
Gary Rapture, 334 State Highway 30. I talked to Mark Lawrence from Lawrence Well Drilling, and I think I've sent it to you. He said that his well that he drilled on that property got 0 water. It's called a dry well, and that he's no longer drilling, but that this person that purchased the property had contacted him, and he didn't know where he stood, what was going on, because he told him he wasn't drilling anymore. But he did inform me that the one well is a dry well and that they couldn't find water. And so I'm sure that's going to be an issue for this person.
It's my understanding that at the time the energy group wanted to tap into the natural gas pipeline, there were 2 wells by 2 different operators. And it was my understanding, one was 600 feet, the other was 800 feet, and that both were dry. As
Okay,
in,
both of them.
not low flow, dry.
Mhm. Well, I'm in front of the property and mine is 600 feet as well. And Provost Brothers called mine a sweat well. The water I get is from the pipe sweat. That's what he told me. And I can't afford to have any more out of it.
Anybody else like to speak? Yes, Matt.
This is my last one. Back to the BESS system there. The life expectancy on those batteries, with Oak Hill falling into or not falling into this new change here. Obviously, those batteries are going to be replaced at some point. Will they fall under this new law at that point, or are they still grandfathered in the free-for-all?
I would say they're still grandfathered in because even they would just be replacing equipment in kind. You know, just like if somebody had a sign and we changed the sign regs, they'd still be able to replace the sign. You know, that's generally how it works in zoning, Josh.
I figured as much. I just wanted to ask. Thank you.
One thing that could come up is with technology, which is why we had to re-review Oak Hill 1 and 2. The technology changed from what they had first said they were gonna do to the best. If there's a new technology that they want to replace when those systems historically die out, they're gonna have to come back and present that for approval all over again, if they want to change how they're doing it.
So just make this clear, so obviously they're batteries, right? And there's different kinds of batteries, so the batteries that they're using now, if they don't replace them with the same, I think they're solid state
If
batteries.
they try to put in a different type of system, they'd have to come back to the town for that.
That's good to know, thank you.
Anybody else? Another moment here. Anyone else like to speak before we conclude?
Motion to close the, where are we? Privilege of the floor.
Councilmember Santilli,
Aye.
Councilmember Graham,
Aye.
Councilmember Lux,
Staying.
Supervisor Lee.
Aye.
We need to get this printed out, you know that? The exact
I'll
verbiage.
make a motion.
Just be sure and say motion, are you going to motion for executive session?
Correct.
Okay, just be sure and say if it's advice of counsel or personnel or whatever.
Motion to go into executive session for personnel issue. We will not be coming back into regular session. Right?
That's right, and there won't be any more decisions made. So you don't have to stick around.
Bye, have a good night,
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.